Every Saturday morning, I wake up and there are 14 video scripts sitting in my Notion database, hooks written, call to actions assigned, topics I actually want to talk about. I didn't write any of them. An AI system I built with OpenClaw does the research throughout the week, picks the topics on Friday night, and generates all 14 scripts by Saturday morning. On top of that, a separate NA10 workflow drops in another 5 bonus scripts from the tool drops. So I end up with like 17 scripts ready to record. And all I have to do Monday is sit down, open my camera, and just talk for 30 minutes. Let me show you how this whole thing works. So before I dive into what this here means, let me just tell you high level what actually happened before, right? I would have multiple NA10 workflows, and I love NA10. It's still a useful tool, but I would have multiple workflows running. Sometimes they would run inconsistently. It would be really complex to align them all. And what would end up happening is I would have to have a separate process for brainstorming. So I have workflows that would drop Reddit, Perplexity data into my Notion database. And then once they added that, I would have to manually choose them and then use Claude Code to then generate scripts. Now I got to spend another 15 minutes, maybe 10 minutes if I'm lucky, using Claude Code to generate a script that sounds like me and it's on brand. And the call to action would be pretty generic. I'll have to spend a lot of back and forth. And if you multiply by 14 or X amount of times, those 5 to 10 minutes add up to an hour and a half on average. And that was just generating the scripts. I wasn't even recording, and it was chaotic. I would be doing a lot of different things at the same time, and it would take hours. And so before I built this system, my workflow was genuinely a mess. I mean, I would have multiple workflows. They'll be stacked on each other. They'll be inconsistent. And so I started building an AI system that handles everything. I mean, in January 23rd is when I found out about Claudebot. It was blowing up on Twitter. I started doing my research, and I figured this was my opportunity to build this AI employee that's different. And so I started doing my research. I got into it. I knew I had to do it. Bought the Mac Mini, started testing in the VPS, and I started getting my hands dirty. And I realized this is the next future for my workflow. So let me show you what this pipeline looks like. So on this screen here, you have how everything is structured. So crons. Think of crons like jobs or scheduled tasks. Every cron has its own payload, a setup, which is, think of it as a set of instructions to, if you want to use OpenClaw, install it safely and all that. There's a lot of tutorials. Try to do it on a Mac Mini, a personal device, wipe it clean. And once you install it though, and you set up these crons, give it good instructions, because if you don't, you're going to run into a lot of headaches. It's going to be good at generating generic stuff. You have to be very specific. You have to configure all the memory. It's very complex sometimes. I get a lot of errors. But if you have the patience to tinker around and just learn little by little, you'll get to the point where it starts being productive. So that learning curve took me about a week and a half. And I went from like 148 crons, jobs, to like 38. And so this is what a typical week looks like. There's a research cron. In the morning, my OpenClaw scrapes X, and it just puts anything interesting into the idea base, which is, think of it like an idea database that lives on Notion. So as it finds good ideas and good news that's relevant, for example, if OpenClaw was released, that'll be an interesting topic to talk about. My OpenClaw agent would take that, drop into my database, and then by Friday, it does keyword research. Now this keyword research serves twofold. It's mainly for my long form video, but what it's doing here is looking at, okay, what does Chris like? What's actually trending? What's an opportunity for Chris to come in here? And that's what this cron does. And by Friday evening, it's actually generating a strategy. So this is Monday through Saturday. Has all these ideas that have been thrown out. Not every day is going to be a hit, but when there is a hit throughout the week, whether it's from Complexity Research, X, it drops it into the idea database. And here on Friday, it comes time that this agent, which is the video strategy agent, looks, okay, which of these ideas are good for shorts? I know this research we've done, X, Y, and Z is trending, whatever, and it just basically chooses the 14 topics for that given week. Come Saturday in the morning, the script agent's only job is to generate script. And so what ends up happening is once the strategy agent is done, it opens a new record in Notion. So let me show you here. It goes in here and it says for shorts in particular, it drops context. So think of it like this. If you were to generate an article, you're not going to just give it to a writer and say, hey, write me a good article on X, Y, and Z. You're going to give it a brief context, right? And so that's what the strategy agent does here. This is a good prompt to share. Here's a URL to share it. And then the script agent gets to work. It generates a headline and it generates a script. That's pretty much it. It does it 14 times. Now for my long form video, it does the same thing, but it leverages the vidIQ data. So all the keywords that are trending, that are skyrocketing for that given week, it says, okay, these are the keywords we're going to target. This is the topics that make sense for Chris. Let's generate that. Now here's where NA10 actually comes into play. Out of all my workflows, I did disable a few, but I still use NA10. I still think it's great. And what I'd use it for here mainly is for tools. So I have my NA10 scrape competitors for tools they talk about and uses perplexity to find gaps. So for example, here it scrapes the competitors and then says, hey, what are some gaps? What can we improve? And then generates a brief, feeds it to this other agent, which does the perplexity research. Once the research is done, it feeds it to the script agent, who then generates a script. So what I get is a script that's ready to record. Now, this is assuming a lot of things. This is where there's a little bit of gaps here with this workflow. No matter how much I tried, I could keep tweaking this, but I haven't really nailed it, where this agent is always picking the best topics. So it's filtering through the noise and saying, okay, does Chris talk about this? Is this a good topic? Still, there's some tools that I don't talk about. It's just some of the scripts are just awkward. I'm not going to cover it. It doesn't make sense. And so what this agent is going to do here is going to just say, okay, from these 5 scripts, maybe these 2 make sense for Chris to cover. Maybe this one makes sense and I'm going to polish it. And it understands how to generate scripts. It understands the call to action, everything. And basically it gets to work, and that's what it does. So from these 5 scripts, they're just bonuses. I end up with 14 to 17 scripts. And basically they're good to go. I just record. That's that process right there in a nutshell. Okay, so OpenClaw runs like 40 crons for me, or jobs, and I just showed you earlier the content pipeline, which is all this running together, which is about 8 crons working together. Think of it like a bonus. I'm not going to really cover this again, but I do want to point out this drops it into database here. You know how I mentioned earlier that I drop ideas throughout the week? This is where these would flow. So throughout the week, NA10 drops ideas from Reddit, but at the same time, when my OpenClaw agent scrapes X, perplexity, it also drops them in here. So just putting everything together, here's an idea of what I was doing before. Even though NA10 ran workflows and all that, I will still have to spend time brainstorming, choosing the ideas, generating the scripts. And so when you add all that together, these are just estimates. It would take me anywhere between maybe 10 hours weekly just generating content, maybe actually 10 to 15 hours just generating content. Now I've streamlined it to the point where it's taking me 5 to 6 hours per week. That's generating 14 scripts for shorts and then 2 long form for YouTube as well. More, but now the bottleneck is the editing. And that's something that Claude Code may be able to help with that. I've already got to the point where I have a Claude Code workflow that trims the fat, like the ums, buts, and all that stuff. It does it pretty well. It's like 80% there. But the other part that I want to improve is like the production, like adding sound effects, adding maybe some B-roll, adding maybe a little bit of more tasteful effects, not just adding effects for the sake of adding them. Basically like pro level editor at this point. So I haven't really cracked that code, but that's my next to do. But like with any system, this isn't magic. The reality is you're going to get errors. You're going to hit roadblocks. You're going to be confused. And it's going to take some time to learn this. It took me about a week and a half just going back and forth, understanding, being frustrated, yelling on my phone sometimes, and just honestly like learning, asking my OpenClaw, like, what does this mean? How can we prevent it? What is a payload? I kept hearing that over and over again. The payload fail. What is it? I started getting better at asking questions and getting more knowledge. That's how I get experience, just by diving in and learning. If you're different, you may want to go to the OpenClaw documentation, but let me show you some of the common failures. Here's a real snapshot from the last apparently 48 hours. This is a dashboard again that I built with my OpenClaw agent, and here's what failed. My X engagement. So what I'm doing here is I want my OpenClaw to source profiles that I should engage with daily, twice a day, and just drop them in my engagement database. And then I can just go in there and engage here. But the point is, it's failing because it's trying to do too many requests. So you'll get issues with API. You'll get issues with the cron itself if you don't have it configured correctly. Like for example, I was trying to use another model like Sonnet 4.5, experimenting to save money, because I don't think Opus should be used for everything, especially for like basic tasks, like to refresh this dashboard. The reality is you're going to hit roadblocks. You're going to learn. Other ones are where crons run simultaneously. So one of my issues was I got excited. I was like, we're going to work 24/7. Let me stack all these crons. And so what I did, I had 140 plus crons scheduled, and I thought I felt productive. But the reality is I was going 20 miles far, but maybe like a half an inch deep, when I should have been building workflows and understanding every cron and making sure that every cron was actually like netting good stuff. So what ended up happening though is that we had multiple crons running at the same time, and so then they would error out. But the point is, I'd rather just focus on quality than quantity. But that's pretty much it in terms of the issues. All right, so with all this, what does it really mean? OpenClaw, NA10, Claude Code, doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, what matters are the results. And I already showed you here the before and after. It almost really feels like I have a teammate that just works to generate the script, so all I have to do is record. It's not perfect yet, but it's getting scary good, where I couldn't achieve that with NA10 or even Claude Code, and it's only going to keep getting better, which is crazy. And now with the OpenAI acquisition, I can only imagine that it's going to get a lot more polished. So OpenClaw is open source, and allegedly it will remain open source because despite being acquired by OpenAI, the founder of OpenClaw joined OpenAI, and from what I understand, it should remain that way. And so that's good news for us. If you're just starting off, a Mac Mini is definitely enough. But honestly, now this is the first time ever that I've recorded my 14 shorts. It took me 30 minutes to record them, and now I'm recording my long form videos on the same day. I'm using self-hosted NA10. This is semi-free. It's $60 if you pay annually. Notion, you could use free tier. I'm using the $12 a month because I like the automations that I can use within it. And then vidIQ is $20 a month. I'm 50% more efficient, and it didn't cost me anything extra. It's because it's not just using one tool to replace everything. It's about combining everything as a system. I put together a doc with 15 leaked AI prompts from tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, real prompts, real stuff you can actually use, all compiled in a Notion doc. It's free, and the link's in the description. And if you want to see this pipeline as it evolves, subscribe, and I'm going to be building this all in the open. So hopefully this was helpful and inspired to enhance your workflow. I'll catch you in the next one.